contact with German soldiers in the war, is this the source of the letter, sort of costume and paraphernalia and whatnot? Does that come from that, or
Sorry.
come from an earlier time? You said you had your contact with German soldiers and Russian soldiers in Finland.
Yeah.
Was the source of part of this fantasy?
Yeah, well, you see, because Finland was in the war, we started actually before the Second World War started. I mean, Russia wanted to take Finland and their position, which had happened already in history several times. And Finland was then independent, but they wanted to take it back. And so they started a war, and the only country which was on our side to help us was Germany. And so we got support from Germany. They were not really so much involved with our war because they were busy in other fronts. But the last year, 1944, the German army came to Finland because they wanted to take Leningrad. They had surrounded it from south, so they came to Finland, to the northern side, and tried to do that. It never worked, but it worked on other level. I mean, I met the German army guys there, and I must say it was very, very hectic time.
But are those experiences the source of the letter?
Well, then we didn't have actually leather so much. I mean, leather scene before 50s was very different. It was people wore leather because they needed. I mean, for instance, fishermen out on the sea, it was cold. They needed leather to keep them warm, but it was not a leather fashion the same way. The same with the boots; they were not the same. So the leather scene as it is today, it started in the 50s.
Where did your fetish come from, though?
Well, it came from those boots, the fishermen, the farmers, and because Finland is very cold most of the year, so they needed to dress warm, and they had quite a lot of leather then, and nearly everybody in the countryside, they wear boots during the winter because it had heavy snow and all that. It was practical things. But I saw in all that something different, and so it was there.
The other thing I just was interested if you comment a little bit on is you talked about the happy ending of the work, which I always thought was a very interesting thing when I was looking at your drawings. That there does, well, first thing is the whole idea that it's what's going to happen next becomes the eroticism in the art, as far as that odd connection of what will happen next, that being much more erotic than the actual act. But also the idea of a happy ending. I notice this is a gay porn trend, that even when we're dealing with situations of prisons or any sort of enclosed situations, or the idea of being enclosed in a uniform, there tends to be this idea of revelation, or anybody who's tortured in a gay porn suddenly makes some major discovery that frees them in a certain way. So if you're familiar with Jean Genet, who writes a lot of the freedom of a criminal or the freedom of a prisoner, I was wondering, that happy ending sort of, is that an implied sort of thing, somehow through that uniform or whatever, there is something that I always find that the clothes reveal and free up the sensuality of the men much more than they ever inhibit that. Whereas we tend to think of those sort of officials as a sexual entity without sexuality to them.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I really feel and I really believe in the happiness in all that, and I'm sure that people who are not at all involved, if you talk about, for instance, the SM scene, who are not involved in that, or who don't have anything to do with that, who never experienced that, they have very difficult to understand that those people who are really involved with that and act in those figures, that they feel happy doing that, because in normal way it looks and sounds like the opposite. And there are so many things which are involved that even they are not quite classified to sadomasochism, but which are related very much to that, like being in prison and feeling being prisoned, and similar things where you are forced to be and stay in limited conditions and you have not your freedom. Or the opposite, you are 100% free to do whatever you want, and you might do some silly things. So I believe very much the happiness in some way is there all the time. Because if it wouldn't be there, so it wouldn't last ultimate time when it happens to your life, then it would never be there anymore. For one way or another, you would cut it out from your life, and still, because it continues and continues, so there must be the positive experience, the happiness must be there. But what we then mean with happiness, it's this, that, it's so many things. To everybody, it's a bit different.
Was that your message? Were you trying to communicate that message in your art?
Yeah, I very much wanted to try to show that in situations which traditionally should be, when you see in TV news some criminal and all that, and terrible things which are done, which is we only experience sort of a negative way. So the same could be expressed in a different way, and it could be in some point it can be positive, it can be, there can be happiness without criticizing what is right and what is wrong, what somebody has done, but I mean the process. So there is always the happiness, and I wanted to try to get it obvious again and again.
Were you trying to influence the gay culture?
I'm afraid I might. I didn't want to, and I always wanted to fight against that, and I thought that I don't want to tell people how they feel. I don't want to make them change. The same with the straight world. But then during all these years, finally I found out that I'm sort of lying to myself. I'm doing it without an obvious purpose. It's still behind there. I want to influence other people. I want to change their opinion. I wanted to make them understand things which they didn't understand before. And even I wanted influence to so-called straight people to accept, understand, and see the gayness in a positive way. But I always said, well, no, I don't do that. It's not my job and all that. I only draw for those people who understand my way and my style. I mean, I guess it was some kind of protection, self-protection, which made me think like that. But I'm sure now that they're behind, I was always motivated from that I wanted to influence, I wanted to change, I wanted to show, like I wanted in the beginning, I wanted to show the gay people when they had no right to be gay because to be gay was forbidden. So they felt guilty, they felt unhappy. They couldn't show that they enjoyed sex action or something like that. And to me it was all wrong. I wanted to tell them that they have a right also, even it was legal or not, but they have a right to enjoy their life in their way. And so it was that, and that was sort of meant and open, but then the rest I sort of thought I don't do that and I don't mean that. But as I said now, I found out that all the time it was my purpose there to influence, to show people, to teach them, to change their habits and accept themselves and accept others and so on, and be accepted.